Hi, it's Guru on Does It Matter again. Um, Another one that I commonly encounter within myself, certainly and within others too, is the tendency to live our past, not learn from it. It's remarkably easy to get caught up in the feelings and sound and clamour of the events that have preceded us and pushed us along like the wind in our sails, or the storm in our sails, as it may be the case sometimes, and has lacerated us and excoriated us along into the present position we find ourselves in. And it's very easy to feel driven, and to feel helpless in the face of that which has preceded us and that which has often pushed us along. You don't always have a choice about these variables. Governments will engage in policies that they will do, other people will engage in behaviours, and these are things you have limited to no control over in some circumstances. So you can't necessarily alter all the variables in your life. In fact, you can rarely ever do that. Um, you can, however, frame the way you see it, the way you react to it, what you decide on the basis of it. Unfortunately, we have a whole bunch of hardwired anthropological instincts to react to a lot of things. And sometimes they're good, they save us. You react to a flicker of movement in your peripheral vision, you step back, the bus doesn't hit you. You react to a micro cue in your partner's face, and you don't say the thing that might tip you over the edge and dissolve your relationship, or you don't, release information that you were told in privacy, and you've, for a moment, some cue triggers you, and you don't say that. These are these are hardwired, beautiful little biological protection systems built into us and built into our psychology, and they're really useful. Sometimes they screw us over though. Sometimes they backfire because they are conservative by nature. They are conservative by nature, most of them, and they are preservative. So if you need to be progressive, if you need to be reformist, if you need to be ambitious, if you need to be imaginative, if you need to be brave in change, then many of these instincts will go against what you need to do. And so we are often shaped by forces that are the exact antithesis of what we need to be doing. And then we look at our lives down the track, a few years later down the track, and we're puzzled because despite our best wishes and our expressed goals and our ambitions, we have ended up in a different place, and a place that looks profoundly often different to where we anticipated being. And we feel profoundly different. We may be suffering depression or anxiety, pardon me. We may be experiencing fear. We may have disjunctions in our relationships, with schisms with friends and family that we did not anticipate, we did not want, but nonetheless are there. This is a classic example, or these are classic examples of where, at least to some degree, controlling for other people's behaviours and other people's free will, where we have not been driven by what we want or what we need. We've been driven by the exigencies of the past. We've been driven by this hard anthropology that tries to keep us safe and doesn't always succeed, because that anthropology evolved in the savannas and plains of Africa, and it evolved in an entirely different experiential milieu. It evolved on a completely different environments. We are not well adapted for human society as it stands in the 21st century. So a lot of the time, your instincts and your feelings will be really useful, and they'll keep you alive on the road. They'll keep you alive in dangerous situations. They'll keep you alive. They'll tell you when someone's lying to you sometimes, if you're paying attention. They'll give you micro cues that let you know when you're screwing up and you're putting your foot in it, whatever, or you're saying the right thing, and you're about to be asked back to the ladies' boudoir or the gentleman's boudoir, as may be the case. Um, but they'll also mislead you entirely, and this is where being a conscious, aware person, practicing reflection, practicing the what is it like to be principle. That's you'll hear Sam Harris talk about on his wonderful podcast, Making Sense, and his meditation app, which I use, Waking Up meditation app. I advise anyone to use it. It's only a few dollars a month. It's well worth it. Both those platforms are fantastic. But he practices that. He's one of many, many millions of people who practice that particular way of curating yourself and getting better results in your life. And I subscribe to it wholeheartedly. It certainly changed my life dramatically. The past is there to learn from. It's not there to live your life in the future. And the past is there to be learned from, not to be victimized by. Things that happened in the past are in the past. Can they happen again? Yeah, if you're thick, if you're foolish, if you decide to repeat the past again and again like some mindless myopic automaton. But you're not a mindless myopic automaton, you're not a robot, you're not a dummy, and you're not thick. Hopefully not. So don't act like it. All right? Look at your past. Ask the questions that are painful. Okay? Be uncomfortable for a while. Explore the shitty decisions you've made and then change them. Make different ones. Be uncomfortable again, even further, by making different decisions, by exploring different options. It's the only way that we grow. The past is there to provide a gauge by which we may act in the future. It's not there as a script. It's not there to bounce off like a ping pong ball, mindless ping pong ball. You're not that, so don't act like it. Okay? The past is the most useful tool I have for negotiating the future. I've made a plethora of mistakes. I'm a deeply flawed individual, as anyone who knows me. And I have to do that, or I will screw up in a variety of ways. Okay? So I use the past to engage my present behaviour to create a future that works better for me and for others, which is just as important. We live in a society where social animals, our relationships are all predicated upon being able to intelligently liaise with each other. We need that. So just keep it in mind. Are you using the future like a library to draw from, to learn from, or are you following a script, following a pattern of hurt, disappointment, happiness as well, and joy? A lot of drug addicts are exceedingly happy for a lot of the periods that they're abusing drugs. A lot of alcoholics love drinking. There's a lot of happiness in doing bad things. Serial killers seem to greatly enjoy killing and burying people. Okay? So you can have a lot of happiness. Being happy doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. Being happy doesn't mean you're doing something that's sustainable and good for you and good for others. Okay? So even as a measure, happiness, sadness, anger, hatred, fear, worst of all, are crappy measures by which you determine what you should and shouldn't be doing. Fear's the worst one of all. People are dominated by fear. I was hurt 10 years ago. I was hurt 15 years ago. I was hurt. We all were. And you have my absolute compassion for the suffering that you've experienced, particularly if it was violent or tremendous financial deprivation. 5 victims recently in Australia, losing everything. It's horrendous. All right? And my heart goes out to you. I've experienced some pretty bad travails of my own. I understand. But it can't shape you except in the ways that you allow it to. If you allow it to shape you into a bitter, vengeful person, a fearful person, a scared, timid person, if you allow it to make you a horrid person, an angry person, that's on you. That's not on the people that hurt you. That's not on the events that have crashed into you so brutally. That's on you. You're making decisions after the fact that determine who and what you are. So make a decision. Make that decision each day, every hour of every day, and I promise you, a year or two later, you won't believe the differences. Just make different decisions. Make adjustments. I tell my fighters and the guys I train, the kids and girls and guys I train at Toe to Toe Martial Arts, little plug for my school, I tell them all the time, make adjustments. Adjustments. Constantly be flexible, constantly adapt. You, as my old coach Nino Pillar used to say to me, you got to be a different fighter every round. You've got to be a different fighter every round. You've got to be able to make adjustments mid-round. You've got to be a different fighter depending on who you're fighting and what the circumstances are. I apply that to life in general. You've got to be a different fighter. You've got to be a different person depending upon the circumstances that confront you. And you have it within you to do that. You do. You really do. You know? It may not feel that way, but feelings are goddamn deceptive. Feelings are the result of thoughts. Okay? I know they feel so powerful and overwhelming, and this is certainly what makes life worth living, is feeling. But don't trust them. They're not there to guide your life. They're not there to make your decisions. They're the result of your decisions. Okay? Your beliefs are the result of thoughts put into action. Actions become habits. Habits become feelings, and the self-reinforcing cycle goes on. You eventually develop strong assumptions and beliefs about life, and you better hope they're right. If they're not right, you need to be able to make adjustments. Hence, not letting the past mindlessly dictate your present and thus your future. You need to be able to make adjustments at the time in the present when things are not working. You need to be able to reflect on that. What is it like to be me? What is it like to be this other person? What is it like to do this? What would it be like to do this? What would it be like if I were different? What would it be like if things were different? And explore those things with imagination and logic. This is how we detach from the past, and this is how we create a future which draws from the past without being a slave to it. Keep it in mind and have a great life. See you soon.